Hello, it's so good to have you back. It's Tom Jordan with you on a Wednesday. And remember when Barack Obama harkened back to 2008? He said his presidency would bring in hope and change, and he promised that it would. You remember that? And then what followed was, radicalism, division, and despair for his 8 years in office, which was this concerted effort to amplify that division to disrupt Donald Trump's first term in office, followed by even more radicalism and despair under President Joe Biden. Remember all of this? Well, it's not too distant history. Well, now it actually feels for a lot of people there actually is a sense of true hope and change in this country, back to common sense, principled, I think objectively fair and anti-discriminatory policies, and it's happening very quickly. Thankfully for that. I want to focus on just two things today, primarily the dramatic turnaround at the U.S. Mexico border and also the initiatives to stop the kind of misnomered and discriminatory racist programs known as DEI, which are based on a critical theory that divides people based on their immutable traits like skin color and sex and age, age. I don't whatever. Maybe age is in there as well. I don't know. But let's start with the border and the crisis that we've kind of endured over the past 4 years. In just 1 week, President Donald Trump has delivered a dramatic turnaround at the southern border, slashing illegal crossings by over 50% in 1 week. Daily encounters have dropped from over 1,200 from the last week of Joe Biden's office, by the way. It was about 12 to 1,400 a day to now about 600. With the Del Rio sector, once a hotspot of chaos, they had just 60 crossings in a single day. They used to have 4,000 in one day under Joe Biden. 2023 in one day, 4,000. Now it's down to 60. Colombia now bowing to Donald Trump's tariff threats. It's now actively aiding in the deportations, offering its presidential plane even to assist in the U.S. efforts to bring them back to their country, back down to Colombia. Border Patrol agents, backed by troop deployments, they're reclaiming control of the border. That's what they're supposed to do. And it's a clear message that's being sent to drug cartels and illegal crossers. America is no longer open to exploitation. And this is what happens when leadership prioritizes strength and security and accountability over these empty promises. And then there's what's happening with the DEI. And, President Trump, of course, we've talked about this over the past week, that he has ordered a stop to the federal DEI mandates. And there's an effort now to continue that trend in various states, like in the state of Michigan. Michigan State Senator Jim Runstad is calling on Governor Gretchen Whitmer to put an end to the taxpayer-funded DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion projects. And the racket is what it really is. People are making tons of money off this. And what is it doing? It's further dividing our state. And this is all following President Trump's decisive move to eliminate those bloated and ideological programs at the federal level. So Senator Runstad, his message is clear. He put it out the other day that DEI is a wasteful experiment in social engineering that the voters of Michigan overwhelmingly rejected in November by, of course, electing President Trump back to the office. And Senator Runstad is not just speaking in hypotheticals here. He points to, other states are doing this. Indiana, the governor there, Mike Braun, is scrapping DEI programs. This is something that we can do very effectively, and it's better for everybody, every individual in the state. So let's bring in Michigan State Senator Jim Runstad joining me now. Also, by the way, he's running for the Michigan's GOP party chairmanship. So we're wishing you all the best in that as well. Good morning, Jim. Good morning, Senator. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Tom. Good to be on the show. It's one of the most informative shows that people get tuned into, so glad to be on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Can you give me an update on where you are? And I'll just start with the GOP, chairmanship. You're in the running for that, and how are things looking in Michigan?
It's very good in terms of my situation. I started out almost 4 months ago, traveling the state of Michigan, going all over the state of Michigan, from one county to another, meeting people, talking to precinct delegates, to a very good response. They pretty much know I have one of, if not the most conservative record for 10 years in legislative office, and the price you pay when you have a conservative record. It's much easier to go along, get along, vote for stuff that you said you weren't going to vote for. For me, it's imperative to follow through with what I said. That message is very well received. There's a new requirement that you have to raise $15,000 from 6 people in order to run. Decision was made by state party about 3 months ago. I raised all that money the next day. My opponents, one still hasn't met it. Another one just met the threshold a week, several days ago, and the one before that, a week ago. So raising the money has not been an issue for me. And there's a huge new blockbuster information, if your viewers aren't aware, that Gary Peters has chosen not to run for re-election. So now, in terms of, not only do we have the governor, the secretary of state, the attorney general, the House, the Senate, the congressional seats, we now have an open Senate seat. This rarely ever happens. This is going to be a tremendous amount of activity brought here to the state of Michigan because of this open seat. So extremely important to make sure that we get it right in terms of who is the chair of the party. And so I'm getting across the state of Michigan to spread that message.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, because you're right. A lot is happening. And that Senate seat opening up in 2026, well, he's not going to run in 2026 for the 2027 seat. Shocked a lot of people, I think, nationwide, too. Even his own colleagues over there in Washington, D.C. didn't see this coming. So it does mean that we have to have a strong party in the state of Michigan, because you got that, and I'm sure there's going to be some potentially maybe open congressional seats, or at least some tight races in these various districts as well. Not to mention the state got to get the Senate back to the GOP as well. We got the House, you got to get the governor's office. So there'll be a lot of work to do. So we wish you all the best there. I want to talk about something else that's happened in Michigan, and then I want to get to the border because that's impacted your state as well. But you look at the Gretchen Whitmer administration, and with the Democrats having been in control of the House and the Senate over the past couple of years, this radical push to the left, it's mirrored much of what the Joe Biden-Kamala Harris administration looked like. And one of those areas has been a radical push in the diversity, equity, inclusion space. And I don't even know how much Michigan, the Michigan budget is being, is how much is being siphoned off to support these DEI schemes, is what I'll call them, because that's what they are. They're not objectively looking at people based on their character, but it's primarily and almost solely on these immutable traits that nobody can control. And these lessons are so racist, but I've gone through them, these DEI trainings. But what is your position on this? And I know you're calling for Governor Whitmer to back off diversity, equity, inclusion in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, it's fabulous that we have a president who recognizes that under the 14th Amendment, you have equal protection under the law. That means equal protection means equal protection, but everyone is to be treated equally. So with public resources, you don't pick the people based upon group identity in order to disperse things out or deny people. It's supposed to be equal under the Constitution, but that's not what they do. The Democrats never do this. They want to have these picking winners and losers. This is great for dividing people against each other. They love that. It's the old divide and conquer. They try to demonize different groups in order to say, this group is terrible. Look historically what they did. People that look like them, look what they did. You're a victim over here. Oh, geez, look what happened to people that look like you from years ago. And as much division as they could possibly have in order to aggregate all these aggrieved people into a group that will support their policies. So this ripping apart the state, ripping apart the nation, divide and conquer is one of the oldest and best tactics for controlling people. And that's what they're doing with this DEI. It's despicable, it's disgusting. People need to understand the difference between equality, which would be equality under the law, and equity, this weird term that means that we're going to demand an equal outcome, so that if X number of students apply for a position, we're going to look at what are their racial characteristics to see if they can get in. Back in the early turn of the century, around the 1920s, they did it in Ivy League schools because there was too many Jewish students, so they capped them off. They were rejecting them. Recently, almost all the major universities were capping off the Asians. Too successful, too many of them. We're going to deny them what they have earned. You know, they're out there working their rear ends off, came to the country with nothing, penniless, learn how to play the piano, violin, taking tutoring and classes and working. They apply for the seat. Nope, you don't get it. You're the wrong color. Completely despicable, rotten racism is what the Democrats are all about. It's division. It is whipping people against each other, class against class. So I've asked the governor to do what the president has done, and that is get rid of these racist, divisive programs. So we tried to look through the budget to find out where these are at within each budget. They hide everything, no transparency. We do know with the University of Michigan, they were spending nearly $250 million a year on DEI. You know, how many students could go to school with these complete ridiculous trainers with all their racist garbage and crap? I'm sure the governor certainly will not do it. All the Democrats, every Democrat in Michigan that I'm aware of, all support this stuff with one exception. If it impacts them, their families, their friends. See, then they need exceptions from DEI. So if they have some job that they got through their green privilege of money, but they're white, they will say, oh, well, no, I'm an exception. You see, we're going to have, or if they're Asian, other people that look like me, they should pay the price, but see, not me. Not me, no, that shouldn't apply to me. That's the hypocrisy of the left. It's just complete, utter, absolute hypocrisy. The first people that should resign their position if they think they're overrepresented is the white liberal or the Asian liberal who would support these programs. They never do that. They make all the other people who do not agree with these policies suffer for these policies.
Yeah, it's amazing. That the fact that the University of Michigan, and it was revealed that they were spending that $250 million a year specifically on DEI, and then you got tuition rates going up. And I've seen I've been through these programs, corporate mandates. You got to go through the DEI training, and there's the school and the educational systems and the American Medical Association, and there are actual teachers, DEI instructors saying that we believe that white people are not born human. And it's like this is what they're being taught and how anybody can support this. And yes, this is primarily a Democratic Party initiative. The Democrats have always been, when you talk about racism and slavery in this country, they are the party of racism, and it continues today, but it's just better hidden in terms of what all that means. So I certainly hope Gretchen Whitmer reins this in. I know University of Michigan is reining it in. Donald Trump has put out a roadmap and how to do this effectively, and hopefully she follows suit. Any confidence that she will?
Absolutely no confidence whatsoever. This is what they've always stood for. The Democrat Party, if you look through historically, was the party of slavery. They are the party of segregation. They're the party of Jim Crow. They're the party of incarcerating the Japanese in camps. This is what they have done historically. They're also the ones that were in the Ivy League denying Jews positions. They're the ones that are denying Asians positions today. So the discrimination based upon race and external characteristics has always been the roadmap of the Democrat. The only thing that changes is who's the new victim. That morphs over and over. It used to be blacks, then it was Jews that they were after, then it's Asians, whites. They're always finding out what is the popular person to go after, demonize, and divide the rest from that group. And they've specialized this in the entire history of the Democrat Party. They're the best I've seen at ripping apart the very fabric of the country, turning people viciously on one another, saying this is an oppressor, this is a victim, you got to get at each other's throats relentlessly. This is what they have done historically and even today to stay in power.
Let's talk more about the border now, because I know you've been down there. You've been right on the border there, and it's impacting the state of Michigan as far north as we have. They're coming up from the southern border, not to mention people coming through on the northern border as well, which Detroit, sits right there on the Detroit River across from Canada. So that's an issue also. But when you talk about the southern border, nothing compares to it. And so, in just 1 week, I do recall Joe Biden saying there is nothing that he can do to stop the flow of illegal immigration through the U.S. Mexico border. His hands were tied, that it was all dependent on Congress, and they have failed their jobs, blah, blah, blah. We heard that over. And now, in 1 week, the rate of illegals coming across the border has dropped by 50%, and they're just getting started. Um, is this supported, you think, by most Americans? Like, this is finally what we've been waiting for? And what does this mean for the legacy of Joe Biden, who flat out said, seems to be an untruth, that the president can do nothing about this?
It seems to be an untruth. I like that parsing the language, this bald-faced lie
Very
that he
yeah.
that he is known for. No, he turned all the policies off that worked to restrict this illegal immigration. Day one, he started issuing executive orders. He was stacking up the wall that was down there, selling it off pennies on the dollar, costing us all of this money. He basically let people pour in. When I was down at the border, we talked to federal law enforcement, state and local. There was a lot of them down there, and they were absolute experts. We had experts talking about that consistently. They said, and at that time it was about 3.5 years into the Biden administration, they said it was not 10 million, it was minimum 30 million people, because they have the numbers. Now, there was all 3 times that I've been down there, and it was open to the media. How many media ever showed up? None. Not one. They don't care. They'll go to the talking points of the Democrat. What is it? Because almost all the media are Democrats. When you look at what they give in donations, it's something like 98% to the Democrat Party, reporters.
Mm-hmm.
So you see why the reporters this last time got lambasted. Nobody trusts them. They have the lowest trust level ever. They're all in the bag. They're all with Biden, except for a few outlets, Fox News being an exception. They're all like, Biden said the border's closed. It must be it's closed. I mean, they were all in on this thing. Almost every Democrat voter I know is completely fine. Their vision is that even if we have to pay for these, even if it busts the country, we want more Democrat voters in. They figure that when somebody comes penniless across the border, and we're giving them an Obama phone, and we're giving them, they were getting $7,000 cards, debit cards, that were funded through the UN, funded by us to the UN. It was. It's corruption galore, put up in hotels. They literally having kids that would pick them up, kids that weren't not even old enough to drive. They might be 14, 15 years old. They're getting $1,000 per one of these illegals to drive them into Houston or the other big cities. And that way, if they got picked up, nothing had happened to them. They just released the driver. But the driver didn't know anything, so pick up these group of guys, these are their names, and then drive them here, you drop them off, and then you get $1,000 per person. You can imagine how much money the kid was making. They're happy about this. The cartels were completely safe because there's no way of tracking anything. But it's just a criminal cartel. These are some of the worst individuals in the world being brought in. The Democrats don't care. They're like, hey, if it's maybe someone else get murdered and raped, not me. As long as it's not me, and we get more Democrats in, that's all that matters.
It's stunning to me, and I've have a number of colleagues who I've worked with from the past 25 years, who are very vocally on Facebook now or social media, uh, really antagonizing Donald Trump for taking out illegal immigrations, and they're complaining that this is so sad to see these very fine people essentially being sent back to their homeland, but they don't come out and talk about the many people who have been victimized by the drug cartels and the human trafficking that's going on. Where's the sympathy there? And I want to ask you this because to me, the drug cartels, the ownership of the country of Mexico that they have, politicians, police departments, the federales, they're all under the thumb of the drug cartels. And I know that because that was the case back in the 70s and 80s when I was going down there pretty frequently on a regular basis. And so my concern now, from the point that Joe Biden took office to today, when he just ended his first term in office, that so many members of the drug cartels have infiltrated this country, I do wonder how much control now they have on these various states or municipalities. Do you have a sense of how powerful the drug cartels are here, or these various gangs, maybe from Venezuela, how powerful they already are in this country and including in states like your state in Michigan?
Absolutely. It's heartbreaking when you hear the stories of what happens with these individuals. So because Biden threw the gates open, people are coming flying in. I don't know how they get the money. They have to fly in from Africa and these other countries into South America and Central America and make their way through. Like the Darien Gap is the most dangerous place in the entire world, and that's where they cross from South into Central America. And they give rape kits to the women. All the women are going to get raped. Doesn't matter if they're 7, 8 years old, they're all going to get raped. Because they don't, number one, they're just going to get raped anyway. But once you get past that, if you have some money, you may be able to get down and get across and be free. Most of them don't have the money. So they give them bracelets depending on which gang that they owe the money to. And when they come over, they send them to Houston to turn tricks. Doesn't matter what age they are. The guys, if they don't have the money, they're forced to work in the fentanyl industry. One tiny sniff of a minute amount of fentanyl and you die. So it's extremely dangerous. They have to work in there until they work off their passage before they can come over to the United States. Then you have the criminal element. They usually have a lot more money. They will pay. We saw this one video of this guy. He paid $150,000 because he was a high value, probably terrorist from the Middle East. He was sitting on a fence and they were giving him really good food. He had a horse to ride. He's going to be delivered right to the border and get over to do his mischief in the United States. It is so corrupt. It is so damning to the United States. No Democrat, I can find, whether it's elected official or a voter, cares. They just figure we need more potential Democrats. So these people come over with nothing. The Democrat Party will offer them everything: free housing, free TV, free phone, free food, free, put you up at a hotel. And then those people are appreciative, like, gosh, I came from nothing and I have been treated like a king. The veterans are kicked out on the ground from the United States and they put me in a 5-star hotel. I'm a Democrat. I vote for the Democrat. And
Right.
that's all they care about. That's all they care about. They want to amnesty these people, these 30 million. Could you imagine how close they were with the elections are for like a president? You have 30 million people amnesty, and that's 30 million new. They estimate there's another 20 million minimum that were here before that. The lying media always says it's 11 million. For 40 years, they said it's 11 million based upon a Pew Hispanic Trust study 40 years ago. And they always still say there's a million, even though we take for most of that time, we took 1 million illegals a year, and now we're taking tens of millions, and they still say there's 11 million. It's going to bust the country. The Democrats don't care about that. They just don't care. They just want the power.
They've been saying 11 million since I've been covering the border from many, many, many years ago. It's always 11 million that are here. No, I think you're right. At least 30 million probably came over the past 4 years. And that includes a lot of children as well. And by the way, to that point, the kids that have come over and the kids have been lost. I think about 300,000 children have been lost by the Joe Biden administration. And I don't know if you saw this, but it was last week. The Trump administration in 1 week was able to locate and rescue 80,000 of those kids already in just 1 week. And Joe Biden's administration said there's nothing we can do about it. We don't really know where they are. And they're trying to hide those numbers. And I think if you truly cared about illegal immigrants, like you say you do, you would have been right away looking for those children who have been lost within this country. So do you have, I mean, can you touch on that? Because I know Michigan, the New York Times wrote a piece about the state of Michigan, the number of children, minors in this who are illegal immigrants who are now working in the state of Michigan illegally, like forced labor at various corporations. These are kids who may have been lost. Why do you think no one has really done anything about that serious of a situation, like the Jocelyn Bensons and the Gretchen Whitmers and the Dana Nessels, about that situation happening in their own state when we're talking about kids who have gone missing and might be working in various corporations right here in the state?
Yeah, there was exposés, national stories on little kids, way underage, working at these corporations, mostly on the west side of the state. The entire Democrat apparatus cannot mention that. If kids are being raped and murdered, they cannot mention that. They'll talk about the cages that they say Trump built, which were built by Obama. They will lie, lie, lie. These poor kids working, 12-hour days, being threatened that their parents will be killed back in the home country. They don't care. They cannot say anything about rape, murder, enslavement, anything, because the policy is we need as many people here, particularly if they're illegal, because then we will be giving them the benefits of massive billions of dollars of American benefits in order to buy the vote. We're just waiting for the amnesty, but then many of the states are now allowing, and many of the large cities, you can vote as an illegal alien in most of the large cities now. So it's all about doing the vote. In Michigan, you're destroying almost all of the parameters to protect the vote. There's no voter ID. You literally can come in now, sign up online, and go in and vote without ID. Same day registration and vote with no ID. It's everything they do is designed to create a one-party state, a one-party nation. They just want absolute draconian control like they had in the Soviet Union. That's the goal. Nothing can they say against the horrific treatment of these kids because it impacts the open border. All they care about, keep the border open, get more voters in.
That's amazing to me. Yeah, it is. And I think you're right about that. I mean, there's no other way to accurately describe why anybody would want this to happen. It's not, they had the guise that is for compassion's sake, but it's not about compassion because if you care about kids, you would care that they're being raped, some of them being murdered, or at least being forced into labor, working 12 hours days, as you just touched on. Um, when it comes to politics in Michigan, as you touched on earlier, Senator Gary Peters announcing that he's not going to seek his seat he's not going to campaign in 2026 for another term. Do you have any suspicions as to why he's dropping out? Any inklings? I mean, what's the scuttlebutt out there in the political arena in terms of why Gary Peters, only his second term as senator, is deciding to step down from a pretty powerful position in the U.S. Senate?
Well, and what I've read is he wants to spend more time with his family. He's only 66 years old. He doesn't look you know, like I remember John Dingell. He was on oxygen. They
Yeah.
wheeled him in a wheelchair. He didn't even know what he was doing. They say, Congressman, vote yes or no. So he's
And
not in
Dianne
that condition.
Feinstein, same type of thing. Yeah.
Same
Yep.
type of thing. I would, you never know, but a lot of times there could be a health issue that people have to reassess their situation based upon a health issue. That may be it, or it could be that he really does just want to spend time with his family. It's impossible to know.
Yeah. It's a grind. We know that's the case. Whether in state politics or you're at the federal level, it is a pretty much 24/7 job. So I appreciate your service. You've been in the legislature for quite some time. And hey, but before you go, this bring up a comment. I think somebody has a question, maybe a comment for you, if you don't mind. Jim
Sure.
Chakowski, who is on board on the conservative side that is interested in running for the Senate seat? I have some inklings, but what do you think? Do you think anyone's on just like solidly on board yet on the Republican side for this open seat?
Oh, I would say all of the ones who've been talking about governor are certainly going to be candidates considering that. Then you have to wonder about the Senate, the federal Senate campaign on the Republican side. Are they going to have a favorite? A lot of times that tips the scale. Is there going to be somebody that Donald Trump has a favorite on? That could certainly tip the scale. So I would say all of the ones who've been talking about or announcing they're interested in governor are certainly going to be potential candidates for that seat. And then a lot of us, can you raise the money in the primary? It will cost a fortune. I'll bet you this open seat might cost $100 million
Oh, my
in the
goodness.
general. So you
Wow.
certainly got to raise the money because unfortunately in American politics, if you don't have the money to be competitive, you're not going to be.
You're not going to be in the race. We got one more for you. I'll let you go. Let's bring that up. Cameron Harris watching that. It is from Vaughn Westerby is back. Hey, Vaughn, can't the legislature simply cut off funding to this social engineering office? Don't they have the power of the purse? They need to use it. What do you think?
They They can, if we had the majority of Republicans. Right now, we have the House, but the Senate for the next 2 years is going to be in the hands of the Democrats. That's why I'm able to run for the state party chair. You're there at 10 till about 11:30, 3 days a week, and the rest of the time you can't get a thing done. So we have to retake the Senate. We would have to retake the governor's office to make that change. And then further, you'd have to have Republicans who will stand together and do it. I mean, I've railed against this illegal immigration that we're paying for out of state of Michigan. I've railed against this DEI relentlessly. All the way for my entire time that I've been there, some of this garbage has been going on, particularly with the universities. I said, defund the damn universities. If they're going to violate free speech or they're going to have this DEI racist garbage, we're constitutionally obligated to fund them, but that doesn't say anything. It could be $1. I said, we'll give them $1. If they're going to violate our free speech, if they're going to violate the rights of people under this DEI, defund the universities until they straighten that out.
Yeah. Very good answer. Yeah, we got to, the Republicans got to get the majority in the Senate and the House. You got to take back the governor's office. And you're right about the Senate seat. I think even on the Democratic side, those same candidates looking for the governorship are kind of bolting over to maybe the Senate seat, including Pete Buttigieg, I think, is contemplating that so much. Hey, appreciate it. Senator Jim Runstad, he's up for a GOP chair running for that position, and always appreciate you having on the program, Jim. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, take care. Yeah, Senator Jim Runstad doing a lot of work. And it's amazing how many, he's right. There's a lot of Republicans who don't, for whatever reason, want to address some very serious issues, DEI being one of them. Maybe they're afraid of the pushback or whatnot, but listen, the pendulum is swinging. And it's now, I mean, it's objectively obvious that DEI is incredibly racist and discriminatory, and it favors one person over another solely based on, again, I say this term a lot, but an immutable trait that you're born with. And that's discriminatory, something that nobody can do about. You can't change the color of your skin. You can't you really can't change your biological sex. You can't do that. So that's what discrimination, that's the kind of discrimination that is occurring right now under these DEI programs. All right, I want to get to what Caroline Levitt did yesterday, her first time. And we've had her on the program as well. Caroline Levitt, great person, very young, very savvy, and she's smart, and she did a great job yesterday. I'll play some of the highlights of Caroline Levitt's first press conference for the Trump administration in a moment. But first, I want to talk about a big change with Executive Wealth Management. For more than 40 years, Executive Wealth Management, they've been really a trusted community partner. I speak with them a lot. I've known them for quite some time, and I trust them. And they've been helping Michigan families plan for what's important. Well, now they are part of EP Wealth Advisors, and they've taken their mission to a whole new level, to the next level. And this merger, it brings the benefits of a really premier national firm. So you got enhanced services, you got enhanced tools, you got expertise across the country, while still delivering the personal small business care that you've always valued. It's the same approach, but just better. With their all-in-one approach, they simplify retirement planning, investment management, tax strategies, and more, so you can focus on what matters most to you. At Executive Wealth Management, now EP Wealth Advisors, you get the best of both worlds, trusted local service and big business benefits. You can call their Brighton regional office today. The phone number is 810-229-6446. EP Wealth Advisors in Brighton, it's 810-229-6446. And let them help you plan for what's important to you. Very trusted partners. I appreciate their partnership with Tom Jordan Live as well. Okay, let's talk about Caroline Levitt. Okay, so they had the big press meeting yesterday, and she gave some real answers to some real questions, and the press room there at the White House was packed. And she went around the room and called on all sorts of individual reporters who in the previous administration would not be called on by the previous press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. And it was a very refreshing moment because you got real solid answers from somebody who seems to be quite savvy. Here's Caroline Levitt yesterday, some of the highlights.
The new Trump administration is back with a bang, and the regular press conferences are no different. Trump's press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, impressed with her first press conference, with many Americans sighing with relief at the return to competence and normalcy, which was missed while Biden's press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, was at the helm. Karoline Leavitt put everyone's mind at rest when she gave a clear answer to the issue of the drones.
I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office. From President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
The simple answer led many online commentators to blast Joe Biden, with this person saying, "Press secretary says the NJ drones were authorized by the FAA and were not enemy drones. Why couldn't Biden just tell us that?" Leavitt also made the bombshell revelation that for the first time, new media will be allowed into the press briefing room.
This White House believes strongly in the First Amendment, so it's why our team will work diligently to restore the press passes of the 440 journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the previous administration. We're also opening up this briefing room to new media voices who produce news-related content and whose outlet is not already represented by one of the seats in this room. We welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House.
She then torched the press pack with this zinger on illegal immigrants.
Can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
And on the issue of cost of living, a reporter tried to blame the Trump administration for high egg prices, which Leavitt swiftly debunked.
Christian Day Talk.
Thanks, Caroline. Just real quick, you mentioned the inflation executive order the president signed, but egg prices have skyrocketed since President Trump took office. So what specifically is he doing to lower those costs for Americans?
Really glad you brought this up, because there is a lot of reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure, egg prices increased 65% in this country. We also have seen the cost of everything, not just eggs. Bacon, groceries, gasoline have increased because of the inflationary policies of the last administration. As far as the egg shortage, what's also contributing to that is that the Biden administration and the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of more than 100 million chickens, which has led to a lack of chicken supply in this country, therefore a lack of egg supply, which is leading to the shortage.
Online commentators applauded her performance, with this person saying, "Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt hit an absolute grand slam in her first press conference as the youngest serving press secretary in American history at the age of 27. The impressive performance signals a clear changing of the guard in Washington, D.C. The no-nonsense, logical Trump administration is in, and the mainstream media puppets which buoyed the Biden administration are out. Seen most clearly this week by the resignation of veteran CNN journalist Jim Acosta."
Just wanted to end today's show by thanking all of the wonderful people who work behind the scenes at this network. You may have seen some reports about me and the show, and after giving all of this some careful consideration and weighing an alternative time slot CNN offered me, I've decided to move on. I am grateful to CNN for the nearly 18 years I've spent here doing the news. People often ask me if the highlight of my career at CNN was at the White House covering Donald Trump. Actually, no. That moment came here when I covered former President Barack Obama's trip to Cuba in 2016 and had the chance to question the dictator there, Raul Castro, about the island's political prisoners. As the son of a Cuban refugee, I took home this lesson. It is never a good time to bow down to a tyrant. I've always believed it's the job of the press to hold power to account. I've always tried to do that here at CNN, and I plan on doing all of that in the future.
This commentator said, Caroline Leavitt is a rock star. These next 4 years are going to be sublime. Never thought I would say this, but I'm going to miss seeing Jim Acosta being her piñata.
Break out the popcorn. James Wood, an actor there. By the way, Jim Acosta, the guy that says he's always been holding, speaking truth to power and holding people in power accountable. He's defended Joe Biden for the past 4 years for the most part. And he's I would say it has been a tyrant in disguise. When you look at how authoritarian his regime has been in targeting people who are not aligned with his partisan policies, that would be more tyrant-like and tyrant-esque that Jim Acosta did not speak truth to. And one of my favorite moments of Jim Acosta, just hearkening back to his days covering the White House, when he wanted to prove that walls don't work at the U.S. Mexico border, he traveled down to the U.S. Mexico border, stood in front of a newly built wall under Donald Trump, and he said, look, here's the wall, and look around. There are no illegal immigrants anywhere. Why do we need this wall? Not realizing that he was defending the whole purpose and the efficacy of the wall by saying there are no illegal immigrants here, actually because of the wall that Jim Acosta was standing in front of. It's like, dude, okay, you just made the point of Donald Trump, that walls actually work. They keep illegal immigrants away. They go elsewhere to try to get across the border. So I'm not a fan of Jim Acosta. I think he was incredibly partisan, not a newsman. I'm glad he confronted the authoritarian dictator tyrant in Cuba, and that was good. But to equate Donald Trump to that guy, when Barack Obama was the one that opened up, Cuba trade and all that under a dictator regime, and Donald Trump shut the door once again because it was a communist dictator type of regime. We don't do business with dictators. It just doesn't make any sense. So objectivity is back. I think logical, common sense policies are back in the White House. Jim Acosta is gone because the American people have woken up. They've been disillusioned to CNN that they're not objective, and many of the news media outlets are much the same. And it's why trust in media has gone down so dramatically. And you've heard me talk about it as well. I've stunned at what's happened in the news media, not just here in Metro Detroit, which is bad, not just in Michigan, but around the country. It's all the same. Jim Runstad said it, but more than 90% of them are donating. When you look at the parties they donate to, it's like 93, 94% Democratic Party. They're in it. It's a big collusion scheme that's happening. And it should be the other way. And I hope the pendulum swings back now to more objective journalism reporting in this state and this country. We hope so. All right. Very much appreciate your time. We'll be back here tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. It's TomJordanLive.com. Remember, we're on Facebook, X, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And you can learn more at TomJordanLive.com. God bless you. We'll see you back here tomorrow.